Hello everyone and welcome for another video of Love and War Games. In this video, we are going to take a look at the Zhanmadao Battlefleet set for the Empire. We'll take a look at what is inside, what you can build with this, how you can play with these miniatures, and how you can expand from there. So it's going to be quite a short video as you will see because there are not so many options, but all of them are really interesting. So let's jump right in, and before we jump actually, let's first remind what is the Empire playstyle. So the thing to remember is the Empire is one of those great power, like macro faction, where there is a lot of diversity between each nation, which means each sub-faction. For example, we have the Chinese. We know they have a lot of flamethrowers with their uh, Hokyong. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but they have a lot of flamethrowers templates. They can play a lot with the alchemical quality, and overall, they are a very good tricky faction with quite a good mobility and lots of tricks. On the other side, we have the Japanese, which don't have many tricks except their redeployment at the beginning of the game, and they have very good submarines, and their ships are just good. Like they have great stat lines. Not many tricks, but they do a lot for what you pay for them. And finally, we have the Koreans who have those sky fortresses that we're going to talk about today. So all these ships that we're going to talk about, they are kind of Koreans, but also they have the Chinese and slash or Japanese keyword because you can make them Chinese ships, Korean ships, Japanese ships. You can combine all of those. That doesn't have a lot of consequences right now, but as we expect more Korean skyships later on, it might have its importance. But basically, right now, all the airships are going to be either Chinese with more rockets, more alchemical weapons, etc., either Japanese, and in this sense, they are going to be better at boarding actions. So, alright, what do you get inside the Zhanmadao Battlefleet or 66 euros? You will notice I start to give the price in euros and not in pounds anymore, because now those boxes that we'll talk about, you can find them on my hobby place and they sell in euros and not in pounds. And all the prices that I show, by the way, uh, or the normal price, let's say, and if you buy on my hobby place, link in the description, you get minus 10% on that. So it's less than 60 euros if you buy this. So what do you get in that? You have only three miniatures, and then you can say like, what the hell? 66 euros for three miniatures. What is this, Games Workshop? No, don't worry, you have a lot of stuff. You will have, I think, six sprues, and as you can see, you will gonna get six sprues of these flying castle. So you're gonna build two of those as the standard sky fort, which are mass 2, and four of those you're gonna link together and make this single massive Zhanmadao Sky Fortress. So it's quite hard to show how big it is on the picture, but you're gonna see it very soon in a battle report that we're making for the big day event. And this thing, just imagine, like it takes four entire sprues to make this. This thing is huge. It's basically less long, but much thicker than an Ice Maiden. So really, it's massive. And yeah, you get 6 SRS token because the Zhanmadao itself is an aircraft carrier. So first of all, it's super cool to have such a big sky castle being an aircraft carrier. And one of the two variants, which is not the one displayed here in the picture, is also an aircraft carrier. So of course you're going to need a lot of SRS tokens. And actually on the miniatures themselves, under the fort, like inside the fort, under the tower, you can see there are some SRS tokens as well. You can have a look at the Zhanmadao unboxing video we made where you can see that, but it's quite insane that there is so much detail on these plastic sprues that are actually hidden once you finish building it. And you will barely see if you look at the right angle in the whole the aircrafts that are being stored inside. But yeah, just amazing. So yeah, basically three miniatures that you get. And yeah, the first ship we're going to take a look at is the Zhanmadao Sky Fortress. And one thing I want to say before we start is that this is the 3.05 profile, which is very similar, but there have been a very little adjustments here and there, and especially the Zhanmadao has received quite a significant point reduction. It used to be completely OP, then it became quite cheaper but a lot weaker, and it was not very balanced, so it got another point decrease. So it's now not anymore a Flying Death Star. It is a very good ship, as we'll see, but it's not a Flying Death Star anymore. And for the price, it's 400 points, which is really up there in terms of expensiveness. Like I think it's one of the most expensive ship in the entire game, but at least like it's worth its points now. This is still the beta version, so but it's more interesting for you to see this latest version. It's been in this state in beta for a while, so I'm pretty sure that by the time you will see the video, the 3.05 version of the game will have been released, and this will be the latest profile. Otherwise, I will make a little edit in the comment and tell you what has changed. So, the Zhanmadao Sky Fortress, you pay 400 points. What do you get? First of all, it's an aerial unit, so this is something that is worth considering. This is why you see SDV of 0. This thing is flying, so it doesn't care about line of sight most of the time, except if there is flying islands and stuff. And it cannot be targeted by anything that is submerged, including torpedoes. So being immune to all the torpedoes in the game is actually quite a big deal, and it really boosts its defensive profile. Plus, it is not that weak for an aerial unit. Yes, Armor 6 is not great. Citadel 13 is very much meh, but it has ADV of 10, which is wow. And it has a special type of shield generator. It's a tower shield generator. It's this giant thing right here that you see in the picture. And this means it removes 5 dices of any attack that is targeted at him. This is by far the strongest shield generator of the entire game in terms of how many dice it removes. And 5 dices plus ADV if someone shoots you with rockets or something means that this thing is basically immune to rockets, which is usually what you want to use at the aerial units. Even if you shoot with railguns, for example, which is what aerial units usually really much hate, minus 5 dices on a railgun is a huge deal because they have very low dices to begin with. So this thing, even though it has low armor and low citadel, it really requires dedicated firepower to bring down. And with 12 hulls before it starts degrading, I mean, good luck bringing it down. If your opponent does manage to bring one absolutely massive attack, I'm thinking, for example, of the dead presidents for the Union with the electro cannons, which is also like something that is around 500 points. But this, for example, one massive attack like this can threaten the Zhanmadao, yes. But if your opponent has normal firepower, it really will bounce off on the Zhanmadao's shield, or it will take a lot of time to bring it down. So okay, now we talked about the defensive profile. What else does it do? First of all, it has priority signals, which is something quite interesting. It allows to boost basically a little tag to make sure that if something goes wrong, you can try again, which is interesting. Not the most important rule, but good to have. It has flag barrage 12, which is the highest flag barrage value of the entire game. So one way to deal with it could have been to send some SRS tokens, but statistically you remove at least 2 tokens with the flag barrage, and then you have the ADV. So good luck doing anything to the Zhanmadao, except if you have an entire carrier fleet. And it also has its own SRS capacity of 8, quite significant 8. It's okay, it's not 10 or 12 like we've seen on the largest carrier, but this is as big as the dedicated flagship carriers that we've seen in the game. So very good aircraft carrier capacity as well, and that is already quite a lot. It has heavy firepower, so it can combine its heavy alchemical rockets very efficiently. It has heavy broadsides everywhere, and finally, alchemical cluster bombs. All the sky fortresses that we will see, even the Mass 2s, have a special rule where you can actually say, okay, for this turn, the front is going to be this side, and the next turn you can say, okay, the front is going to be this side, and then you really decide where it's going to go. It doesn't have anything like a vulnerable stern, but at least it allows you to have like insane mobility when you can just go one way then the other without problem, one turn after the other. It is lumbering, however, so be careful because this means that gun batteries and gunnery weapons in general will have an easier time damaging you because they're going to be rolling blanks anyway. So against some opponents, it can be very annoying, especially again against railguns, for example, which are still your big threat, even though having this tower shield generator really protects you against that. And yeah, there are a few ways to play this beautiful ship. You can customize it. I would recommend, if I were to give you advices, to play it as a aircraft carrier, which means keep it a little bit in the back. so it can send its SRS token. Make sure that it's a huge ship, so it will attract some firepower, especially since it is very hard to hide this ship because it's aerial. So your opponent will feel like it wants to send some SRS token and some firepower and everything, and it should bounce off on the Zhanmadao. Like this ship, even if it gets sunk at some point, it will absorb more firepower of your opponents than it's worth. Like it is more of an anchor, of a shield, than it is a hammer. It is efficient. If your enemy ignores it, it is going to do a lot of work, but it is more tough than it is offensive oriented, except if it's really focused hard. And this way, this is how I would say play it. Flag Barrage is very good to protect your backline from your enemy's carrier. It has a good shield. It has the capacity to really be like kind of like an anchor. And yeah, just a good ship to keep in the back. It is tough and it will hold the entire game. Like I'm pretty sure it will survive the entire game. So this is how I would play it myself. And of course, use heavy firepower every turn because it's quite important on its all its heavy alchemical rockets. Another way to play it, and we'll talk about it later, would be to deep strike it, to use the generic Empire battle fleet to put it in reserve and make sure that it arrives turn 2 at the maximum in the back of your opponent. This is a little bit more offensive oriented. If you do this, you can replace its weapons. There are a few ways that you can replace them. For example, you can put some dojos or especially the Huoqiang that should be like very, very threatening for your opponent if you decide to play it as a deep striking piece. If you do that, of course, bring some reinforcements for this poor Zhanmadao, especially one of the two types of the Sky Fort that we'll see later. And yeah, it's going to be very, very threatening. Of course, it's going to have every broadside left and right, alchemical cluster bombs that will be efficient then. And if you haven't noticed, it has Frey 22. This is another big thing that is important to note on this ship. It is slow, but if you do manage to use reserves to bring it very close to the opponent, it is just going to do critical damage, like a double catastrophic explosion on anything it boards, because it also reroll blanks in natively on its boarding action. So this thing is basically unstoppable in boarding. So this is also another way to play it. It might get focused down because it will not be protected as much as long as it is at point blank, because then your enemy's gunnery weapons will be at ideal range, which is it's dangerous. But if you do that, damn, someone is gonna have a bad day. So these are the two ways to play it, either as an aircraft carrier way in the back, sending rockets and aircrafts and protecting your ships with the flag barrage, or send it in reserve with all the flamethrowers and the Japanese samurai ready for boarding, and just use it as a huge distraction piece. Then we go for the sky forts. So you have two different variants, and we're going to start with what I think is the most interesting variant, which is the Qianshao, I guess, I'm sorry for the pronunciation, Skykeep. This is the fortress that is the aircraft carrier version. As you can see from here, if you look at the right angle, you can see the little aircrafts that are inside. This thing has flag barrage 4, which is a little bit less than the one we will see just after. But the most important part to note is that it is an aircraft carrier, SRS capacity 4/2. It's something we see usually. And since it is aerial, you can really keep it far away. And it is 138 points, which is more expensive than what you have usually for this kind of ship. But 3/5, like it can get crippled fast. And since it is aerial, you can really keep it very, very far from your opponent. It can pull back, like retreat very easily thanks to its decentralized system, and you can just keep it all the way to the back the entire game, and just make sure that it is an aircraft carrier that will survive the entire game. You can replace the broadside with a flamethrower. That is something that is can be considered, but I'm not sure how I would do it for sure. What you can do is keep it very far away and make a squadron of two of those, for example, and send heavy alchemical rockets turn after turn after turn. I would not recommend to turn it into a Japanese ship where you will replace the main weapon with a dojo, because it does not want to get close to the enemy at all. If you want to do that, we'll see the next version. And yeah, it's just going to be the very good complement to the first version of the Zhanmadao that we've talked about. If you put a Zhanmadao in the back of your fleet, playing the role of aircraft carrier, surrounded on its left and right with two Qianshaos, then it's going to be a very, very solid backline for your fleet. It's gonna send something like 16 SRS token every turn. It's gonna throw rockets everywhere, and it's gonna be a flag barrage 8 and 12, a flag barrage 20. So you statistically you remove more than 3 SRS tokens per turn with just with your flag barrage, and then you have crazy amounts of ADB. So very, very good way to play the Zhanmadao. And it's actually what I would do. Like I did receive the Zhanmadao as you've seen, but I've given it to Zongo, which will bring it soon for the battle reports, these little Chinese skykeeps. But if I were to play those, I would play this way because the Empire really has a trouble having some aircraft carriers, and this really solves the issue. Okay, and now the last version that we will talk about is the Ziwei Sky Bastion. It's first of all cheaper, 10 points cheaper, and it also has a better repartition of its hulls. It's 4-4 instead of 3-5, which is better. It also has a better flag barrage, which is always something that we appreciate, and something interesting, it is a landing vessel. Interesting and very cool. Like I can just imagine this Sky Bastion just landing on an island to drop like tanks and samurais and stuff like it. It's very very cool to imagine this kind of thing. And how do you actually play this except as a landing vessel? Because this thing is very very slow. Like it has speed 3, mass 2, so it's gonna move 5 each turn. It's gonna take a while until you reach an island, right? So it doesn't have any special thing that would allow it to be any faster. So how I would recommend to play this? Well, this is exactly the opposite of the Qianshao that we talked about before. This I would put it all the things so you can deep strike it by placing it in reserve. So it combos very well with the second version of the Zhanmadao that we talked about, the version when we say like, okay, just put it in the rear of your opponent turn 2 and then ask him to deal with it. Well, couples Jiwei are gonna be very good to do this and to escort it. First of all, you want them to become Japanese. In this case, they will lose their main weapon, which is a little bit sad, but they will get Bushi Dojo, so they will get at Fray 12 and Rerolling Blanks, which means each of them can board a different target and do a lot of damage. You don't have to do that. You can, of course, keep the Zhanmadao as a border and keep them just as support, and then you don't need to get them the Japanese trait. You can give them heavy Ryokyons. I'm sorry about the pronunciation again. And if you do that, I would recommend replacing the broadsides with Rokyans for free, which means that you can combo your big flamethrower with your small flamethrower. And this is basically what they're going to do. Support as a border and just throw flames left and right. So that could be really, really cool. And the last thing that you could do is to give them either shield or shroud if you really want them to be tough. But I'm not sure I would do that. Like, if you deep strike them, consider them as very offensive pieces. They will come, they will do their damage. So maybe it's better to see them as disposable and not try to make them survive because they will get shot down if your opponent has the entire fleet next. This sounds like I'm not usually the kind of player that likes to throw away the ships and be like, okay, I'm just using them once and they're dead. I'm more defensive myself, but it does sound like a lot of fun to send a Zhanmadao and a Jiwei. If you do this, well, first of all, you can magnetize everything. Of course, you don't have to glue them, and you can always proxy if you don't want to glue what is on the side. But I think if you have this box, you owe it to yourself to try at least once to play this deep striking Zhanmadao because it sounds like a ton of fun. Okay, so let's say that you have this box of the Zhanmadao and that you are a newer Empire player, and you're like, okay, what do I build next? What do I buy next? Well, the first thing that I would recommend is some Japanese ships, and you'll be like, what? But what if I want Chinese? Don't worry, if you want pure Chinese, we'll talking about it in a second. But the Empire really has this notion of collaboration between few nations, and the Japanese are really going to be a good combo with the Zhanmadao because they are very good at holding the center. Zhanmadao likes to be either way in the back, as we've talked about, sending SRS and sending rockets, or as a deep strike. But then who holds the center? Well, the Japanese can hold the center. The Hachiman Battlefleet Set for a little, just north of 100 euros is going to bring you a ton of ships. First of all, you're going to have this massive ship that you can build either as the exosub carrier, the Hachiman, or the Dreadnought, the Akita, which I would recommend because it's probably one of the toughest ship in the entire game, or the support ship, the Matsumoto, with its crazy, crazy rail weapon. I'm not even sure what it was, but it's the crazy Matsumoto ship. If you know it, you know it. It's very efficient. So you can build, you have this very tough ship, whichever you build, it's going to be tough. My recommendation is the Akita to hold the center. You're going to have 3 Japanese frontline cruisers. You can have a look at all the different versions. We've already talked about it before. I'm not going to make an Orbat review, but even the default version is already very, very efficient for its points. And you also have 3 of the larger Japanese submarines. I especially like this one here, with exosub carrier. I think it's called the Mizushi, if I'm not mistaken, and this is what I would recommend, 1 or 2 of those, or you can of course make magnetize as always. You get 6 frigates, 3 destroyers, and 3 of the smaller Mass 1 submarines, so you will have a ton of options. All of those are good ships, especially like all of them. I'm not gonna say one is better than the other, but all the Japanese ships are good. You have 12 escort tokens, the cheetahs, 3 SRS tokens extra, 3 exosub tokens. Like, you have a lot of things for 100. Yes, it is 100 euros, but you get so much. Like, if you see all of this on the table, it's already like a fleet in the box. And this is going to be a great combo. A Zhanmadao Battlefleet plus the Hachiman, it's already going to be more than you can put even at 2000 points. So it's going to be a lot of fun for you and for your opponent as well, because it's going to be a beautiful fleet to see on the table. But yeah, it's really going to hold the center extremely well. It can also work with the Empire starter set, which is basically the same box for 72 euros, except instead of the Hachiman, which is a mass 4, you get a mass 3 battleship for the Japanese. It's also very good, also very tough, and you get less ships. You get 2 Japanese frontline cruisers, 2 Japanese submarines, etc. You get 1 less crew of each, and but it's still going to be very good. If you don't want to go all in the Japanese and you just want some Japanese ships, the Empire starter set is really a good deal. And again, these prices is a normal price. You get minus 10% on each of those if you go on my hobby place, and plus it helps the channel as well in the process. And okay, maybe you bought the Zhanmadao because you like the Chinese aesthetics and you're like, okay, I want pure Chinese force. Okay, so how do you do? My recommendation would be the Heilong Battlefleet Set. There are some others very good ship. I'm thinking of the Ningjing as well, which is a very good Japanese ship. But this one is interesting because there is a lot of variety, and the Heilong really has a specific role that it can fulfill. The Heilong, which is this ship right here, has 2 versions. Either the flamethrower version, which is extremely efficient, you've seen it on the battle reports already, and it's very good battleship, let's say, that can do a ton of things, and especially at point blank, it's very good. So good for threatening the enemy at point blank. And you have the Ergun, which is a landing vessel actually, so very good to capture islands once the scenarios will be released. And it's also an extremely good boarding ship, as good as the Zhanmadao itself. You get a Japanese frontline cruiser that I would recommend building as the Jian, which is the default version, which can be attached then to the Heilong to make one big activation. They can combine in flamethrowers and stuff, or you can combine to the Ergun, of course, if you want, but it's less efficient. But still, build it as a Jian if you don't know what to build it as. You have this Tianlong aerial colossus, which will be very, very efficient to put some pressure early on your opponent. And you get 4 Chinese frigates, which are the very basic one, and 2 Chinese destroyers, the Gong, which have been nerfed because they were by far the best ship, the best mass one ship in the entire game. They have been nerfed. Now they're just really, really good. And if you do plan on building and playing the Zhanmadao in the rear of your fleet, then I would recommend buying the Heilong Battlefleet Set, because the Heilong can then be in the generic Battlefleet and deep strike and do its flamethrower attack or its boarding attack if you build the airgun and stuff. If instead you know your playstyle and you want to use the Zhanmadao as a deep strike unit and to really go for boarding actions, etc., then I would recommend to actually buy the Ningjing Battlefleet set, which should be about the same price. Because the Ningjing, then you can build it as the Yangtze artillery cruiser, and you can have the Yangtze all the way in the back with its extreme range weapons, and your Zhanmadao is going to be deep striking. Okay? And finally, if you really want to go all in the air forces for the Empire, you can buy the Qianlong Battlefleet set. Same price as the Heilong, and this time you don't have one dragon, you have three. And this means you can have a big pack of three dragons. They used to be so weak. Maybe you've seen it in some of our battle reports, but they used to be underwhelming is a good word. And now they got some boost. They can deploy very close to the enemy and they can hide behind islands for at least one turn, which means that they are much easier to play, they're much easier to get close to the enemy, and you don't even need to bring them in reserve to use them efficiently. So I really like the Chanlongs now. And plus, if you buy this fleet, you also have six of these Chinese destroyers, the Gong, and you can build them all in a single unit, and they're gonna be very good. Like it's gonna give you, yes, three dragons, and you have an extra destroyer unit that you can build and paint and put on the table, and those are going to be really good long range annoyance that are going to do a ton of damage on your opponent and that are very difficult to deal with. And plus, having three Tianlongs that you can just drop left and right is just going to be so cool on the table. I'm not going to describe again how to play them, but they're the same way. You can build them Chinese with all the flamethrowers and the weapons and stuff, or Japanese with a little dojo, and then they can do some boarding actions. Either way, they're going to be really efficient. And that is it. I hope that you found this video informative, and I hope that you are excited about the Zhanmadao. I'm really excited, I know, to see some of them on the table. As you have seen, even though you only have six sprues and all of the same sprue, it is a lot of plastic in the end, and you do get these massive ships that you can have. And I really like that the Zhanmadao, with a single profile, can be customized so you can really play it as a very defensive centerpiece in the back or as a deep striking unit, and then you can really build the rest of your fleet around. And I hope I explained it well in the how to expand part of the video. If you would like to buy this ship and you are in Europe, please go through my Obi Place because it will give you minus 10% and it also helps us, so that's really cool. I hope that you will enjoy seeing the Zhanmadao very soon in a battle report because it's going to have a very special role in the siege for Citadel Omega. Thank you very much for having stayed until the end. If you did, remember to give us a little comment so you have a chance to win either a crown, either an Alliance Battlefleet for our little winter contest. Give us a thumbs up, it always really helps. And until the next video, take care of yourself and remember to keep spreading the love all around. Bye!